Let me introduce now our third speaker. Let me introduce Professor Jan Knippers. Professor Jan Knippers is a director at the Institute of Building Structures and Structural Design, ITKE, at the University of Stuttgart here, and a member of the Board of Directors of the Cluster of Excellence Integrative Computational Design and Construction for Architecture in CDC. He is also a founder of Jan Knippers Ingenieure, and as many colleagues that also we heard today, Frei Otto was probably one of the main gravitational factor that Professor Knippers came to Stuttgart. And also you had the opportunity and the privilege to visit Frei Otto many times in Warmbronn. And maybe it also laid a foundation for your development of the Collaborative Research Center TRR 141, Biological Design and Integrative Structures. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Daria, for the nice introduction. Thank you, Christiane. Thank you, Lucio, for this wonderful event and also for the opportunity to share some memories, some thoughts. I didn't work with Frei Otto. I didn't study with Frei Otto as Jürgen and Kai-Uwe. I just feel or speak here as a kind of representative of this plenty of colleagues who came from far away, as Lucio as well, to Stuttgart because of this unique interdisciplinary and also integrative research culture that we have here. Many colleagues prepared the ground for this, open-minded, forward-looking people like Eckhard Ramm, for example. But the center of gravity, as Kai-Uwe pointed out very nicely, was Frei Otto. I think that's for sure. He was the most visible one. I think one reason for this is that he contributed to both worlds. For architects, he was the inventor or the developer of a new way to approach architectural design that led to structures that were in sharp contrast to these monumental buildings for eternity, like Albert Speer and the generation before him. Engineers, as me, is the inventor of form-finding methods and lightweight structures of unprecedented material efficiency. So I was 25 years ago. I was appointed as a young engineer from practice to a school of architecture, and I had zero clue what to do there and what I could contribute to the education of architects. And the only idea I had was to contact Frei Otto, to get in contact with him. It was a very similar situation as the one that you explained this morning, but the roles swapped. Yeah, so he was the world-famous architect at that time already, and I was a very young engineer at the beginning of his career as an independent researcher. I wrote a long letter, complicated, explaining who I am and what I want. And 3 days later, the phone rang and Frei Otto is here. When do you want to come? And this is here I'm here in my very first semester with my very first group of students visiting him in Warmbronn. My impression was, at that time, he was retired already 8, 9 years, something like this. My impression was that there was not much of a contact to his former colleagues at that time, and that he was appreciating a lot that the young professor from the next generation who was unburdened by all these complicated dynamics and politics that you have at any school probably, that he approached him and just was seeking for contact, for advice. I think my feeling was he enjoyed this a lot. And he spent the entire afternoon with us, going through all his models, going through all his ideas and thoughts. And this was a wonderful memory and experience. And I think this is an ongoing motivation till today. The center of his studio in Warmbronn at that time was this big model for the Stuttgart 21 railway station. This was really literally in the center, 2 meters, 2.50 meters by 1 meter, 220, really big one. And I will come to this later, but this was a wonderful day and a wonderful memory. Then I invited him to give a lecture, and stupid and naive as I was, I booked a small Tiefenhörsaal, which has around about 250 seats. And I never in my whole life saw an auditorium as packed, as full as this one. Also, there was a huge crowd in front of the door who couldn't enter. No. It was there. This I remember correctly. And the lecture was 2.5 hours, and he was already. Let's wait for a second until Jürgen managed to switch off his phone. Okay. So the lecture was 2.5 hours. He was already 77, 78, something like this. The first 30 minutes, he talked about his motivation, his inspiration, without any written notes, fully focused for 30 minutes, without any distraction. And I have a small snippet from this.
Heute haben wir, und ich finde es gut, keine besondere Richtung. Wir haben keine Architekturästhetik, die uns genau sagt, wie wir entwerfen sollen. Wir müssen selber denken, unsere eigenen Wege gehen. Ich habe versucht, immer eigene Wege zu gehen, einfach angetrieben, damit Menschen zu helfen. Mein Antrieb war, ihnen möglichst mit wenig Energie und Material zu helfen, um der lebenden Natur, um den lebenden Menschen möglichst viel zu geben, eben nichts wegzunehmen von dieser unglaublich schönen, aber auch aggressiven Umwelt zu schenken. Kann ich
Okay, so what he says is that there's no given style of architecture, that we have to find our own ways, and that he tries to serve man and try to take as little as possible from nature to fulfill the needs of the humans. Then he walked for 2 hours through his projects, and also from this I have a little.
Heute haben wir
just 1 2-minute snippet from this.
Do
this.
Für die Gartenschau 1957 in Köln hatte ich zum ersten Mal Gelegenheit, diese Konstruktion auszuführen und das ganz schöne Vergnügen mit Fritz Leonhard, der Ihnen ja wirklich was Erfinder der Fernsehtürme und vieler eigenen Röcken bekannt sein sollte, ein solches Bauwerk auszuführen. 36 Meter Spannweite, 24 Meter Breite, 6 Meter Höhe. Und als Haut benutzen wir zum ersten Mal überhaupt in der Welt Glasfaser. Nächste Bild. Vielleicht ist das sogar einer meiner besten Bauten, die ich je gemacht hatte, weil die Aufgabe so einfach war. Nur ein Dach über dem Eingang, der stammt nicht von mir, über einen Zaun und zum Abreißen von Karten für die Besucher der Gartenschau. Aber ein neues Gewebe, eine neue Konstruktion mit einem noch dünneren, noch eleganteren Bogen. Das Wort elegant möchte ich zurückziehen. Nicht der Eleganz haben wir das gemacht, sondern um einen neuen Weg zu beschreiten. Nächstes Bild. Dieser Bogen hat dann viel bewirkt. Der Rosadiner, den ich schon 50 kennengelernt hatte, baute dann 1958 den Yale Hockley, das ein Jahr später in New Haven, Connecticut. Und die allerjüngste Version, 14 Tage nur alt, rein durch Zufall, war ich mit meiner Tochter und meiner Frau über die Hohenzollernbrücke in Köln, sehe etwas zwischen den Bäumen schimmern, kurze Zeit später dahin und sehe, dass rechts einen verfälschten Bau statt 24 Metern und 22, die Spannweite die gleiche, der Bau.
So, I find a few things here interesting. First, he talks about Fritz Leonhard. So from his early projects on, he had these strong engineers at his side. And I think that was very important for him. Not in the way that they contributed to the conceptual layout, but in the way that they ensured integrity and safety of the structures. But I think the main support was that they also raised his credibility. I think that without the support of Fritz Leonhard, all these projects, also in Munich, would not have been possible, because he was world famous and he said, we do this, we can build this. I think that this contribution is underestimated. Second thing I find interesting here, as he also talks a lot about materials. So we know him for these form-finding strategies, his soap bubbles and his hanging nets. But here in this whole lecture, he talks a lot about materials as well. Cotton, first cotton, then glass fiber, polyester fiber, and how this change of materials, this development of materials also affects his design. And the third thing that I find interesting here is that he was very concerned about how his ideas were taken on by others. So he was acknowledging that there were good examples. He also refers later to this Kurt Ackermann, Jörg Schleich roof in Munich that he acknowledged as a good example, but he was also very direct and critical when he had the feeling that others were not somehow not following his ideas in a correct way. So that was this lecture in 2003. And then I think, if I remember correctly, but Christine, please correct me if I'm wrong now. I think he approached me because he wanted to talk about his development of the Stuttgart main station. For the non-Stuttgart people here, you have to know that this Stuttgart main station is a 30 years ongoing story. The competition was in 1997, if I'm correct, yeah. And I think my impression was, but Christine, please correct me. My impression was that he was very worried that his contribution to the entire project were not acknowledged accordingly. We had this lecture together with Christine. I think he was sitting, you were standing, and someone was, I think you were pushing the slides, I don't know. And he went through all these developments. There's also a small booklet, which might be of interest for the historians, which go through all these models. At this hanging chain model, that was the one that I showed you earlier on the photograph in the center of his atelier in Bronn. What I also find very interesting, that there's probably no other project than the Olympic Stadium that pushed the development of computational methods so much as the roof in Munich. Klaus Linkwitz was the form-finding, the force density method, John Agirres, finite elements. So this was really pushing development of computational methods, but he himself, till his end, sticked to physical models and even quite complicated situations like horizontal earthquake loading, tried to somehow prove integrity of this by models. And then I think this, if I remember correctly, please correct me again, Christine. This was the last time that we could see him on stage at the university for his 85th birthday. If I remember, he did not talk there, but Achim talked there. I think he will speak about this tomorrow as well, I assume. And there's also a wonderful lecture of Klaus Linkwitz in this book, where he explained how they met 1961 on the corridor, had coffee together, and got friends. And then suddenly Klaus Linkwitz understood that his methods that he developed for geodesy could be applied in a totally different field. I want to conclude my presentation with the last encounter I had with the work of Frei Otto. It was when I was invited 1 year ago to Architectural Association Hook Park, 2 hours west of London, the middle of the woods. That's how you approach the site. And they have 2 buildings from Frei Otto, which are not so well known, not so often cited. One is the cafeteria. I think Christina played a major role here as well in the development of these structures. This is a cafeteria building with a suspension roof. You can see that they have these thinnings, they call them thinnings, which are logs of young trees, which are still flexible. And here you can see they are very proud of this detail. They have it still there and show it to every visitor, how they anchor these thinnings there. And the outside is not very spectacular, only have this snapshot from the outside. But what I could really feel there is this intensity and the strong identity of the school and how much it is was shaped by the architecture. It was really very impressive. I think they are very proud of their Frei Otto buildings. I think they position themselves very strong in this tradition and legacy, probably even more than we do here. And this goes so far that all they do there in research was somehow topics set by the buildings, by how do we use tree and the forest as a resource without processing or with as less processing as possible. Or the better known building is here the workshop building there, which again, I think here's again this bent thinnings, but here for a kind of compression structure. Again, the outside is very spectacular, so it's more about the inside. And again, I think this is really a wonderful example how important architecture can be and how much it can shape our lives, the way we work, the way we live together. I think this is a wonderful example for this. I see myself also as a kind of representative of the School of Architecture at Uni Stuttgart. We are the engineering department. Architects are in the city center. And I think I just want to say that we position ourselves very much into this legacy of Frei Otto to several colleagues, not only Achim and me, also Jens Ludloff, who has this wonderful umbrella thing this evening, and many other colleagues as well. So at a kind of general level where we somehow bridge fundamental research, experimental teaching, and also explorative design and build praxis, but also on a very pragmatic level, very concrete level, I would say, like this equilibrium of tensile fabric and arches, same as for this example as we've seen before, or the bent lamellas as Frei Otto used them several times. And also as a kind of sign of the connection that we feel to the work of Frei Otto, and we can also understand this wonderful event this evening by Jens Ludloff, Umbrella, Stadtpalais, and I hope to see all of you there later this evening. Thank you very much.